So imagine this. You lose a court case. You file an appeal. You think you're going to get your day in a higher court. But before that can even happen, your opponent just enforces the judgment anyway. They take the thing you're fighting over and then turn to the appeals court and say, sorry, nothing to see here. It's already done. This isn't some legal hypothetical. It's a real, high-stakes strategy that puts the very idea of an appeal on trial. Let's break it down. It's a strategy called the mootness gambit. Think of it like this. Imagine a runner in a race. There's a dispute, a potential foul. But before the judges can even review the tape, an official just yanks the runner off the track. Then they argue there's nothing left to judge because, well, the runner isn't in the race anymore. For a big company, you can see how this is a ruthlessly efficient way to just cut short a long and expensive appeal. But for the person on the other side, it's absolutely devastating. And this is exactly the playbook that was used against homeowner Jeremy Bass. Get this. While his appeal was actively pending before the Idaho Supreme Court, the sheriff showed up and seized his property. Then, just 7 days later, the corporate lawyers filed a motion to dismiss his appeal. That timing is no coincidence. It's a clear-cut dispossess-and-dismiss strategy, and it's designed to make the court's review totally impossible.
All right, so let's take a look at the corporation's legal argument. It was, frankly, incredibly simple. This was them going for a quick knockout, trying to end the fight before it could even really start.
The entire heart of their 6-page motion was basically this one sentence. They were essentially arguing, look, we asked for the house. Now we have the house. What else is there to talk about? Case closed. From where they stood, once the property was physically in their hands, there was no longer a real and substantial controversy for the Supreme Court to even rule on. The issue, in their eyes, was solved by force. Now here's a detail that is absolutely crucial. To back up this bold claim, their lawyers cited a single ruling, and it was from a lower district court, not the Idaho Supreme Court itself. This tells you a lot. It suggests they weren't relying on established binding law. Instead, they were kind of hoping the Supreme Court would just adopt this new aggressive position that, of course, really favored their strategy. But this legal gamble, well, it created an opening. An opening for the homeowner, Jeremy Bass, who, by the way, was representing himself, pro se. And what he did next was nothing short of a masterclass, a really sophisticated counteroffensive that totally reframed the entire battle. So instead of a simple, one-page response, Bass just unleashed a flood of legal paperwork. We're talking 5 separate, deeply researched legal filings. It added up to over 40 pages of dense legal argument, citing dozens and dozens of cases, all in response to that slick 6-page corporate motion. This wasn't just a defense, it was a full-on legal siege. Bass's first move was brilliant. He went straight for the core premise of their whole argument. He argued that this case was never just about the physical house. It was also about the $305,000 in financial equity he had in that home. Taking the property didn't make that huge financial claim just magically disappear. That was still a very live issue that the court absolutely had to deal with. And from that foundation, he started building what you can only really call a jurisdictional fortress. He basically gave the court multiple, completely independent reasons to deny the dismissal. He argued the money claim survived, that his case perfectly fit into the court's own established exceptions to this mootness rule, and he even challenged the legality of the seizure itself. He argued the court shouldn't reward a party for deliberately trying to make their own case moot. He really leaned into the court's own rules, pointing to 3 powerful exceptions. He said the lost equity was a collateral legal consequence. The whole dispossess-and-dismiss strategy, well, that's a classic example of something that's capable of repetition, yet evading review. And finally, he argued that protecting the citizen's fundamental right to an appeal was, without a doubt, a matter of substantial public interest. Then, citing Supreme Court rulings that were decades old, Bass made his most aggressive argument yet. He claimed that the second his appeal was officially filed, the lower court actually lost its authority to enforce the judgment in the first place. This just flips the entire thing on its head. Suddenly, the seizure of his home wasn't a reason to dismiss his appeal. It might have been an illegal act all on its own. So let's just pause for a second and compare these 2 strategies side by side. Because the contrast here, it reveals a much deeper story. Not just about this one case, but maybe about our legal system itself. I mean, this table just lays the imbalance bare. It's incredible. On one side, you've got a quick 6-page motion leaning on a single, non-binding precedent. On the other, you have a self-represented homeowner delivering a 40-plus page legal brief citing over 50 Supreme Court decisions. The corporate story was simple and technical. This is about a house.
Bass's story was so much bigger. This is about equity, it's about justice, and it's about the integrity of the whole appeals process.
So why the huge difference in effort? You have to ask that, right? Well, this quote from Dr. Richard Thompson really nails it. For an institutional lender, this is just another file on the desk, a routine business procedure where efficiency is king. But for the homeowner, the outcome is life-altering, and that can justify an almost unimaginable investment of time and energy.
And look, this whole thing isn't just about one house in Idaho. The outcome of this legal battle could have huge implications for homeowners everywhere, and it raises a really tough question about equality in our justice system.
Usually, to stop someone from enforcing a judgment while you appeal, you have to post something called a supersedere bond. Just think of it as a gigantic security deposit you have to pay the court just to press pause. So people who can afford to post that massive bond get their full, uninterrupted day in appellate court. But for everyone who can't, does the right to appeal become purely theoretical? A right that exists on paper but can be snatched away before you can even use it?
As housing policy analyst Teresa Valdez says here, this kind of situation forces us to ask if we have a two-tiered system of justice. Suddenly, the fight isn't just about Jeremy Bass's home anymore. It's a test of whether a meaningful appeal is a fundamental right for all of us, or if it's really just a privilege reserved for those with deep enough pockets.
And so, this entire complicated legal showdown, which all started with a single foreclosure, really boils down to one simple but incredibly important question for our entire justice system.
Is the right to have your case heard by a higher court a universal guarantee, or is it a privilege that can only be fully unlocked if you have the money to pay for it? The court's decision in this case is going to send a powerful signal, one with consequences that will reach far, far beyond this one case in Idaho.